Hello and welcome to Everyday's Kitchen. Today we're going to make gumdrops or gummy candies. This recipe is a real simple one. It only requires gelatin, water and sugar. And its texture is really close to the famous gummy bears from Haribo, which is gummy, chewy and sticky. Another very nice thing of these homemade gumdrops is that we can make a lot of different flavors of these gumdrops or go for a healthy version of gumdrops by using fruit juice instead of water. So in the next minutes, I'm going to show you how to make gumdrops with gelatin sheets, then with gelatin powder and fruit juice, and in the end of the videos, there will be some tips and notes for you to make perfect gumdrops at home. First, add gelatin and cold water into a bowl and leave it there for about 15 minutes or until the gelatin is completely softened. Note that the water should not be warm because it will harm the gelatin. While waiting for the gelatin to get soft, add sugar and hot water into a saucepan and bring to a boil on high heat and stir to help the sugar dissolve. When the water starts to boil, reduce the heat to lowest and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. After about 15 minutes, when the gelatin has already turned soft, we add all of the gelatin including the water that we used to soften gelatin into the sugar syrup in the pan. Stir very well to help gelatin dissolve and combine with the sugar syrup. Let it cook for another 2 to 3 minutes, then turn off the heat. We now have a very nice and thick candy syrup. What we're going to do next is to quickly pour the syrup into the mold. For the molds, you can use whichever tool that you have at hand, like a baking tray, silicone chocolate or ice cube molds, or just a normal box is also fine. Next, we're gonna add some drops of flavors and colors into the sugar syrup and mix very well. Don't skip this part because it gives taste to our gumdrops. And for me, this is actually the most interesting part to do because I can create as many variations of gumdrops as I'd like. Repeat with the rest of the candy syrup and when finished, skim off the bubbles on the surface of the sugar syrup if there are any. Let these gumdrops cool down and then put them into the fridge. Leave them there for at least 4 hours until the gumdrops have become very firm. To take the gumdrops out, first dip a knife into hot water, then run this knife around the edge of the mold to take the gumdrops out. The gumdrops will be very sticky, so we need hot water to cut them more easily. If you have edible cake spray, you can spray the mold before adding the gumdrops. It helps as well. And the last thing to do is to cut these gumdrops into small pieces using a sharp knife. If you'd like, you can roll them over granulated sugar like this. And after coating them with the sugar, leave them stay at room temperature in 1 or 2 days for the sugar to crystallize, which means that the sugar turns harder and stick to the gumdrops, creating a thin layer of sugar outside the gumdrops. So that was with the gelatin sheets. Now I'm going to show you a quick example on making gumdrops with gelatin powder and orange juice. The method is actually the same. Just substitute the gelatin sheet with gelatin powder, then add the water with the same amount and stir very well to help the gelatin soften. And for the sugar syrup, we use orange juice instead of water, but feel free to change it to another kind of juice to your taste. We bring it to a boil, then simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then add the gelatin that has already been softened and stir well until the gelatin has dissolved completely. And lastly, pour the liquid into the mold. Let it sit in the fridge for at least 4 hours for the gumdrops to get completely firm, then take the gumdrops out. As you can see, the advantage of a silicone mold is that we can take the gumdrops out really easily. So in this last minute, I'd like to share with you some tips and notes on making perfect gumdrops at home. First, the amount of sugar can vary depending on your taste. If you don't want to coat your gumdrops with sugar, you may want to increase the amount of sugar by 10 to 20%. Second, for a little bit of sourness in the gumdrops, you can add lemon juice into the sugar syrup while you're simmering it, or add in some vitamin C is also fine. Third, the longer we simmer the syrup, the firmer, harder, and more gummy the gumdrops will be. This means that you can adjust the gumminess of your gumdrops. For example, if you don't want your gumdrops to be too gummy and too hard, then you can shorten the simmering time, and vice versa. Fourth, the gumdrops should be very dry when coated with sugars, otherwise the sugar will get lumpy, like the gumdrops on the right hand side on the screen. These gumdrops should be stored in airtight bags or boxes in cool and dry place, and they can be used in several weeks. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial and have a lot of fun with making gumdrops at home. We'll see each other again in other videos of Everyday's Kitchen, and goodbye.